Rachel White shot to fame in the 1990s with the publication of her first novel, Crying Wolf. She has since become a well-established author and critic, and I have her in the studio with me today to talk about her work and her inspiration as a writer. Welcome to the programme, Rachel.
Thank you.
Rachel, if we can talk about inspiration first. You always say that you were inspired to write novels by other famous novelists, but was there a particular moment when true inspiration occurred and writing as such fell into place for you?
Oh, yes. I was a fairly academic girl at school, which, well, it sort of went against the grain. I was in my 5th year and I was really keen to shake off this reputation I was getting for being a model pupil, particularly in the literature classes. When one day the teacher started the lesson by reeling off all these compliments about an essay I'd done on the author Lawrence Darrell, one of my personal favourites. This resulted in titters all round, and all the efforts I'd been making to keep a low profile were completely dashed. Then, to cap it all, he got me to read it aloud.
Never a happy experience. But deep down, was it an essay you were particularly proud of?
No. And what's more, it went on for 10 pages. But most of it I'd pinched from a couple of books on literary criticism that I had at home. I'd tried reading Darrell, but I hadn't succeeded, although I must say it was unusual for someone my age to be reading criticism at all. So I stood there spouting this stuff about a book and a writer I didn't know. And then suddenly I came to a quote and I was stunned. It was sheer poetry and I thought, I must read this.
And you couldn't help voicing this observation?
I think I was loath from that moment on, but it didn't matter then. I'd fallen in love with literature.
You're also quoted as saying that the classics, and I'm thinking particularly of Jane Austen, were terribly important to you. You say you were struck by the timelessness of Austen.
Yeah, I think Jane Austen is one of those writers that people like to tick off on their personal book list, so they flick through, say, Pride and Prejudice on a quiet day, and then they make a quick retreat to their personal favourites. I felt fortunate in some way that at 16 I could appreciate the insights that she'd had.
You're well known in literary circles for your essay Literature and the Young Mind. Tell us more about that.
I think literature has really made an impact when you look back and realise that aspects of your own philosophy of life have evolved in response to things that you read. Obviously, experience plays a large part too, but that comes later and is often a reinforcement. I think a lot of writers share an appreciation of the power that literature had over them as young people, and I just wanted to voice that. I owe a debt to Austen, for example, because I refrain from forming judgments about people on the basis of first impressions.
So once you were bitten by the literature bug, if you like, how long did it take? Did you start writing at an early age, or did that come later?
No. After the Darrell essay, there was no turning back. Of course, it was all self-conscious, self-indulgent stuff about family and boyfriends and a little striving for a better self, but not much. All par for the course, I think.
Something you have to get out of your system.
That's what they say. Anyway, I think I've done that now, and I can turn my mind to some of the more deeply held ideas that I have and bring those to the surface.
Would you like to see your own books described as inspirational?
I don't think any writer sets out to stir other writers into action. It's much more a question of art, of creating something that works, that has resonance, and that provides fulfilment for the writer and reader. Anything more than that is a bonus.
Thank you very much, Rachel White.
A. I really like The Notebook. It's a romantic classic. The story is about a poor boy called Noah who meets a rich girl called Ali. And they fall in love over one summer. But, of course, there are problems. Ali's parents don't approve of Noah because he is poor, and they get separated. Then a lot of time passes before they can get together again. She goes away to college and he writes to her every day. But she doesn't get the letters. Then, after quite a long time, Noah buys an old house which he promised to restore for Ali. He does it up, and she sees a newspaper article about it and goes to find him again. You can probably guess the rest, but it's a bit complicated because she is engaged to another man. Noah is played by Ryan Gosling, who is my favorite actor. and he stops the film from being too soppy. But you still cry a lot at the end. Rachel McAdams is really good too as Allie.
B.
I think my favourite film is Skyfall, the last James Bond movie. It stars Daniel Craig again, and Javier Bardem is this really evil baddie. They're both great, and so is Judi Dench as M, Bond's boss. It's a bit different to other Bond films. The story is more important, although there is still a lot of action. It's really well filmed, especially in the scenes which are shot in Shanghai and Scotland, and it's really exciting, of course. Bond is also a bit different. Although he does amazing things, he seems older, and that makes him more human and the story more realistic. Oh, the song by Adele is great too. You know, it won an Oscar.
C.
It's not a very recent film, but I love Pride and Prejudice. The version with Keira Knightley as Elizabeth Bennet and Matthew McFadden as Mr. Darcy. The story is really clever and interesting. Besides being romantic, it's all about how we tend to jump to conclusions about people, and we're often completely wrong. Elizabeth thinks Mr. Darcy is stuck up and snobbish at the beginning of the film, but at the end she realises she's been completely wrong and he isn't like that at all. She also realises he has an enormous house, and that maybe helps her fall in love with him too. After I saw the film, I read the book by Jane Austen, and I really recommend that too. Although it was published 200 years ago, it's still a great read and really funny in parts.
D.
My favourite film has to be The Matrix. Even though it was made back in 1999, it still feels really modern. It's about this ordinary man, Neo, played by Keanu Reeves, who works with computers during the day and is a hacker at night. One day, he is contacted by a woman who introduces him to a very strange man, Morpheus. Morpheus explains to Neo that what he thinks of as real is actually fiction, and the world is run by evil machines who have imprisoned and tricked the human race. Lawrence Fishburne is terrific as Morpheus, and Keanu Reeves is excellent. But the best thing about the film is the special effects. I can watch it again and again.
E. Let the Right One In is my favourite film. There are two versions. The first is Swedish and the second American. I prefer the original Swedish version. It's a modern vampire film and also a kind of love story, but it's really unsentimental and a bit scary in places. Oscar is a young boy with a lot of problems. He is being bullied at school and wants revenge on the bullies. Then some new neighbours move in next door and he becomes friends with Ellie, a beautiful but strange girl. I won't tell you any more because it will spoil the story, but expect a serial killer, a lot of violence and blood drinking. If you like that kind of thing, you'll love this.
A satellite startup company has successfully launched its first satellites in a project aimed at delivering affordable internet access to every corner of the globe. The London-based company is called OneWeb. Its first 6 satellites were put into orbit on Wednesday in a launch from French Guiana. A Russian Soyuz rocket transported the pioneering spacecraft. OneWeb said it eventually wants to have around 900 spacecraft in an extensive network in space. Only 648 satellites are needed to provide global internet coverage. OneWeb will start sending more internet satellites into space towards the end of this year. The company intends to launch several rockets every month, each carrying 39 satellites. OneWeb CEO Adrian Steckel was ecstatic about the launch of the multi-billion-dollar project. He said it would greatly transform the lives of millions of people. He told reporters, "We're going to connect lots of people who are not currently connected. We're going to start by focusing on connecting schools, connecting boats, connecting planes, and connecting huge swathes of the planet." Not everyone is happy at the prospect of a global internet network. Reports are that China is testing jammers to block the network. North Korea might also fear the network could damage its national security. Russia has voiced concerns that OneWeb's network could be used to gather intelligence.
Have you ever heard about something that is unexplained? There are a lot of bizarre things in the world, such as animals raining from the sky, or weird, unexplained heat anomalies found inside the Great Pyramids of Giza. Sometimes the answer is found, and sometimes these things remain a mystery that science cannot explain. Check out these 10 natural phenomena that science can't explain. Mammatus clouds, which means mammary cloud, is a cellular pattern of pouches hanging underneath the base of a cloud. These are typically heavy cumulonimbus rain clouds. Mammatus are most often associated with severe weather, and they can appear before or after a storm. They can indicate a strong storm and storms that cause tornadoes. They are usually composed of ice, but nobody knows exactly how mammatus clouds are formed. Scientists have been studying the formation of these clouds, but still have no idea why they form in the shape they do. Heat anomaly found in Great Pyramid of Giza. Scientists have been studying the Great Pyramid of Giza, which is the oldest of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, and have found strange heat signatures that have no explanation. Thermal scanning of the monuments has found that some of the limestone blocks were hotter than others. The heat anomaly was discovered on the eastern side of the Khufu Pyramid at ground level. However, no explanation is provided for the heat anomalies, which could possibly imply the presence of a hidden chamber inside Khufu's pyramid. Only time will tell what is causing this, that is, if someone dares enter the chamber. Oakville blobs. On August 7, 1994, during a rainstorm, blobs of a translucent gelatinous substance fell in the town of Oakville, Washington. Several attempts were made to identify the blobs. Then, doctors found something startling. The blobs contained human white blood cells. Several theories cropped up at the time to explain the appearance of the blobs, though none have been proven. One of the most popular theories was the so-called jellyfish theory, which stated that the blobs could be the result of swarms of jellyfish being blown to bits by ocean bombing runs, which were then dispersed into a rain cloud. The weird thing is that several residents of Oakville became violently ill after the unusual rainstorm, and a large number of cats and dogs who came in direct contact with the substance became ill and died. Lake Hillier, Australia. Australia is the home of the unusual pink lakes. Lake Hillier is one of them. Located on Middle Island, this body of water is famous for its remarkable bubblegum pink color. 600 meters long and surrounded by a rim of sand and thick woods of eucalyptus trees, this pink lake still surprises and intrigues scientists. The vibrant color is permanent and does not change when the water is taken in a container. No one really knows for sure why the lake is pink. Researchers can only speculate that a dye created by bacteria that lives in the salt crusts is responsible for the beautiful color. Whatever the cause, the water does not appear to pose any danger to humans. Socotra Island, Yemen. Want to feel like you're visiting another planet? Check out Socotra Island off the coast of Yemen. It has been called the most alien-looking place on Earth, and a lost world because the heat and drought conditions of the island have produced around 800 rare species of flora and fauna, and a third of those can't be seen anywhere else on the planet. One of the most striking of Socotra's plants is the dragon's blood tree, which is a strange-looking umbrella-shaped tree. The trees and plants on the island have evolved to suit its hostile climate, and some varieties of plant are a staggering 20 million years old. Kelimutu, Indonesia. Mount Kelimutu is a volcano in Flores, Indonesia. The mountain has 3 volcanic crater lakes that vary colors from each other at different times, making them surreal and exciting to be discovered.